can't imagine the isolation and hopelessness of being so far from home, thousands and thousands of miles and out of control of your own life, under the power of the rising new order, as the Japanese call themselves.
There's no feeling I've ever had that compares.
The whole bottom of my life seemed to drop out.
What am I doing here?
How did I end up here?
Then they herded us out. 9 hours into the war, after a thick fog lifted, Japan bombed our Army Air Corps defenses guarding Manila Bay and burned our hangars down.
We lost some planes before they even got assembled.
All but 5 got shot down, bombed, or crashed.
2 squadrons still on their way were diverted to Australia.
3 days later, we took refuge in a cane field under camouflage screens. We knew we were in trouble.
One guy and I searched around for the ideal spot to dig a foxhole in case of more air raids.
Near Nichols Field was a little river that flowed around to a big curve.
We dug our foxhole right there, with a waterfront view.
Filipinos had warned us about rice snakes.
They were 6 to 8 inches long, bright green, and quite poisonous.
A few days later, around noon, the Japanese bombed us again.
The sky was full of enemy planes. We didn't have time to get to the river. We ran out into the rice paddies, and the snakes had to move over.
Our beds were bamboo stalks. They weren't very comfortable, but if you had a blanket to lay on, you got used to it.
The barracks were open at both ends.
Mosquitoes arrived in clouds.
Then, bedbugs showed up.
Lying on your bamboo and blanket at night, you could smell one coming. They had an odor like nothing else but a bedbug. You had to get up and try to squash it.
Flies covered the latrines.
And the sick.
And the dead.
If you got lice in your clothes, you only had that one pair, unless you took them off the dead, and those were usually rags.
You'd find a barrel of water boiling, take them off and throw them in, then start over again. Lice were the reason a lot of guys wore just loincloths.
There wasn't any soap.
Bathing wasn't a real problem, unless it rained. Our beards and hair just grew until we started barbering each other with mess kit knives. San Francisco had a powerful radio station, and several times before the surrender, guys would pick up KGEI at night.
We had our own war mythology. Rumors were a big thing.
I think some prisoners just made up stories and sent them out to see how they'd come back.
Everybody had heard we were all going to get a new Ford if we got home. Guys were going to get paid double time for our prison time. Our troops were always advancing.
And we always won the battles.
Prisoners who'd been in the Philippines quite a while prior to the war had made a lot of connections with Filipino women and different people.
They smuggled news and items in and out of camp on a regular basis.
Some of the traffickers were even Japanese guards.
3 naval officers tried to escape. The guards caught them and dragged them out by the main gate. They stripped all their clothes off except for their underwear.
They tied their hands over their heads. When the Filipinos would come by, the guards would hand the locals sticks and make the people hit the men.
Those 3 guys hung there for 3 days. Eventually, they passed out.
The Japanese guards loaded them in a truck and hauled them away.
We never saw those 3 guys again.
No religious programs were tolerated. Silently, I might do a prayer like, "Can you help me?"
Something built up inside. Because so many of us were dying every day, we had a hospital ward.
There was no medicine or anything.
In this hospital ward, there was a death chamber with wooden racks like shelves.
When a prisoner reached a hopeless stage, they tie a tag on his toe and move him to the death chamber and let him lay. One guy in our squadron woke up not knowing where he was. He looked down and saw that tag on his toe. It jolted him, you know?
He was lying on an upper rack next to where people walk through. He crawled out there real quick and fell outside on the ground.
The guards found him lying there and took him back to the regular hospital ward.
He survived and is alive today, living in Oregon.
There were sunrises and sunsets, but we didn't admire them.
I can't think of one beautiful thought I had in 3.5 years.
If you were going to think about something, it was the type of food you were going to cook. how you were going to get it.
Guys would talk about movies and girls, but their conversation would always come back around to food.
If you saw a songbird hopping along, you wanted to eat it.
Not even many humorous things happened, except this one prisoner got a hold of some night crawlers and boiled them. He came out with solid dirt. Cooked night crawlers are solid dirt.
You're better off eating them raw.
In high school history books, there's maybe a paragraph about what happened to us in the Philippines, or the Bataan Death March, and prison camps.
As a kid, I didn't know anything about World War I either.
When students visit and interview me for history projects, I can tell by the questions they don't understand.
It's not their fault. They don't remember I was gone, or why I left.
Woke up one morning and the prison guards were gone. This was scary because nobody knew what the Japanese citizens would do with those bamboo sticks.
After living on roofers for 3.5 years, we got word the war was over.
Some of us broke into the supply room and stole rifles and became our own guards.
It's all over now.
Except for occasional nightmares.
Bad dreams happen quite often at first.
I've been captured in my sleep 1,000 times since the end of the war.
Only difference lately is if I get captured, my wife and kids and grandkids are with me.
It doesn't bother me to talk about it, and I'm not bitter. The Japanese now are a lot different people than they were back then.
I don't think of myself as a hero.
Don't know what I did that would have made me a hero.
To say I feel I was a part of history. The way I figure, if somebody brings the Bataan Death March up, I can say I was there, and that's about it.
Everybody is part of some kind of history, somewhere along the line, because of where you happen to be.
I'm just happy that I made it back when so many did not.
As for the fact,
That I was there.
I was sent there.
I didn't volunteer.
I might not have made it into the military
and got run over by a car.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Opgenorth. Gentlemen, Mr. Wooten was excellent. Okay, at this time I would like to call to the stage Lieutenant Colonel Sam Pfeiffer, Marines, retired. We are blessed here today with many gentlemen from various branches of the service and that have served in various conflicts. Mr. Pfeiffer is going to introduce them to you.
Very much. I'm Colonel Sam Pfeiffer, retired United States Marine Corps. I spoke with you last year at this time. It's a pleasure to be back. This time I would like all the veterans to please rise, introduce yourselves, branch of service when you serve.
Joe Rennis, United States Air Force, 20 years retired.
Henry Shantz, Navy, World War II. I was at Leyte Gulf and Okinawa, and the Navy lost 8,000 sailors at Okinawa. It was only 200 miles south of Japan, so we were real easy targets.
My name is Jerry Humble. I was with the U.S. Navy and I served 2 tours in Vietnam.
Jim Buckler, United States Navy, 20 years, Vietnam.
George Swirsky, U.S. Coast Guard, retired, perfect storm.
Tom Brown, United States Army, Vietnam vet, retired Command Sergeant Major.